This is 40K Today. 40K News so impressive, in its stat line under wounds, it says no.
Hello again and welcome to the weekend. This is Friday, August the 21st and also 40K Today. We're happy you tuned in this week. We're about to spend the next 15 minutes bringing you your daily assault of 40K goodness. On this episode, we have a WAAC attack. In the first segment, we get wacky in the fun way, and in the second, we talk a little bit about win at all cost players. First things first, let's get to this week's poll question. We asked, are you happy about the additional wound the firstborn Space Marines are getting? 77% of you said, heck yeah, double the mint, double the fun. It's time to polish up those star cannons. You're gonna need them. If you would like to participate in our weekly poll, please check in on our Facebook page. We'll have the next one running all week. And off we go. This is also a meme-tastic episode. In our first segment, we're going to be talking to content creator Rutherford B. Sindermann. Take it away.
I am so happy to have Rutherford B. Sindermann. He is the editor-in-chief of the Tabletop Inquirer, and he is here today to talk to us a little bit about his project. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Hello, Tanya, and thank you for having me.
So I thought maybe we'd get started off with you explaining in your own words what exactly the Tabletop Inquirer is.
I suppose the easiest analog would be The Onion for tabletop gaming. Only simplified a bit. I only do sort of a headline with a picture and then a single pull quote. My goal from the beginning was to keep it simple so I didn't suck even more time out of my life with my ridiculous hobby. So yeah, it's just kind of a simple, stripped down version of The Onion. Also was inspired a lot by The Hard Times, which is kind of like a punk rock version of the Onion.
Excellent. How did you come up with this idea originally?
I've always enjoyed maybe dabbling a little bit in comedy writing. So I just kind of started doing a few to amuse my friends. And yeah, really, when I started, that was the only audience was, my personal gaming buddies. And it just, as things do on Instagram, it just kind of grows from there.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's satirical at times, and it's quite spicy at times. And tabletop gamers in general, they sort of have a reputation for taking the hobby a little bit too seriously. So how has the reception been towards the Inquirer?
For the most part, it's been very good. I'd say pretty hefty majority of the jokes I'm making fun of myself and or my friends. So when a lot of people will chime in and say I feel seen or I feel targeted or I feel attacked, they sort of jokingly say that a lot, or maybe seriously say that a lot. I'm kind of attacking myself a lot of the time too. Although sometimes I will get into a little headier, more serious stuff and kind of let people have it when they're for some of the crappier behavior you see in our community.
And on that topic, the posts that seem to get the most engagement are the ones that do call out that bad behavior. Do you find that sarcasm and humor is a good vehicle for starting conversations about these difficult topics?
Well, I certainly started a few, some of which went on longer than I expected. It's stuff I sometimes feel like I need to say something about, or sometimes I feel like somebody ought to say something about. And I try to do it in a way that's funny and entertaining, and I'll maybe sidle up to it rather than sort of go straight head on into it. I'm not usually trying to start a flame war. I'm just trying to give my own personal little perspective on something.
And I can't really say too much about some of the other, like some of the more, I guess, controversial topics that you cover, but because I am in the minority and I am a female wargamer, some of the headlines that you have in regards to ladies in the hobby, whenever I see them, I'm just like, oh, thank God that somebody is starting a conversation about it. But also, I troll the comments myself because then I'm like, oh, this is a person to block. This is a person to block. This is a person to block.
Yeah.
Did you ever see that as being like a possible benefit of this content?
People say some dumb stuff. I certainly, Facebook seems to be the most problematic platform in terms of where all these crazy trolls come from. So sometimes when they really start swarming, I have to go through and block some myself because they'll start saying some really wretched things to people. But, it is what it is. But sometimes there are things we need to talk about. And sometimes those are things that certain people don't like.
Yeah. So in general, do you feel like you're just going to keep doing what you're doing, or do you feel like there's ever going to be like a different direction that you take
Uh,
with the
you know,
content?
right now I just do one a week. And my goal, or sort of my limit I set on myself, was I don't want to spend more than an hour per weekday doing this because, I've got my family and my career and a hobby that already takes up a lot of time. So I'm probably going to keep doing more or less what I'm doing. I'm always afraid I'm just going to like run out of ideas, but so far, fortunately, that hasn't happened. We did a T-shirt drive and we raised $1,000 for the NAACP a few weeks back, so that felt good. And we'll just keep chugging along and see what happens, and hopefully making people laugh.
Yeah. I feel like there's never actually going to be a shortage of funny things happening in the culture surrounding Warhammer. So I really look forward to what you come up with next. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it, Tony.
I'm willing to bet you've seen those memes shared a lot. I know I get a chuckle out of some of them too.
Today's episode of 40K Today is brought to you by Frontline Gaming. Frontline Gaming is a one-stop shop for all your Warhammer hobby needs, discounted products, American-made gaming mats and terrain, and a full line of miniatures painting service and daily hobby content. And this can all be found at frontlinegaming.org.
This next topic is extremely tricky. Win at all costs comes in many forms. If anybody's seen a lot of them displayed, it's Salty John. Let's check in with him and see what he thinks.
All right, 40K Today fans, we have a little special treat today. We've got Salty John back on the show where he actually might be a little bit salty, which I'm excited for. John, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me back.
I'm very happy to have you back. So you recently wrote an article, and I'm assuming it went up on Frontline Gaming, about rules interactions and sort of like how you should approach the game. Do you want to talk a little bit about what the premise of the article was, and then we'll get into it?
Yeah, sure. So the basic premise was the idea that like players have a certain amount of responsibility for how they play the game. Like if you were somebody who plays the game consistently in the gray area of the rules, attempting to use that to your advantage, that's on you. And that players also have like responsibility for making sure that the game is being played with fidelity. It's not all just, well, this tournament organizer or this judge said whatever. Like a lot of it is if you are actively going into a situation hoping to use a specific rules interaction in a way that is not necessarily accurate, you have to own that. Like that's who you are, that's how you're choosing to play. And we as a community should not encourage that type of behavior when it comes to competitive 40K. That was it. And I posted it, and then I got a bit of traction on a couple of places, and some people were really upset that about the idea of it being on the player and not the judges necessarily.
Oh no,
to curb that type of behavior.
It's 100% on the player, and let me explain why. We're playing a miniatures game, and what I mean by that specifically is this. It requires a social contract to keep the game clean. It is so easy to bump models. It is so easy to move models, mismeasure. I mean, there is 1,000,001 ways where you could do microaggressive cheating if you wanted to, and you were that guy. You can get away with it. You 100% do, and there's people that do because all they care about is winning, right? That definitely happened.
Yep.
Now, the good news is the players at the top level of the game, your Nick Nanavati's, the people like that, they will absolutely shut that down. Your Richard Sieglers, they don't want any of it, and they don't want any part of that. They want to beat you in what I would call a beautiful game, right? They want to beat you because their strategy, their tactics were better than your strategy and your tactics. They don't want to win because they had better dice. They don't want to win because they found some loophole in the rules and caught you off guard that you had no idea that that's how that worked. They want to beat you in the game, right? Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, it makes absolute sense. There was somebody who made a comment somewhere about one time they watched a game Richard Siegler was playing at a tournament that was being streamed, and he gave so many takebacks to his opponent that it was almost like watching Richard Siegler play himself.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the kind of way he plays. And that's the way the game shouldn't be gotcha moments, which we've kind of gotten away from, thankfully, but it also shouldn't be like, I'm going to go into this event with this idea in mind that I'm going to bid once I'm there to be allowed to do this thing.
Yeah. I mean, think about it, right? Do you want to be Belichick? Are you Bill Belichick? Are you going to do everything you can under your power to win? We don't get paid millions of dollars. We don't get paid hundreds of dollars to win this game. So
some people don't even get paid tens of dollars.
That's the point. There's no money in it. So it really becomes sure, there's some accolade, right? And there's some F-list notoriety, I guess. But dude, if you're playing the game for those reasons, you're doing it for the wrong reasons, man. The game is actually encapsulated by an amazing community that you get to engage with, full of sweet, sweet people. And that's what it should be about. You want to go compete and win? I'm all for it. I like to compete too. Don't get me wrong. But if you're trying to win just by, being that guy, and you might think, oh, I'm not being that guy. I'm just playing by the letter of the law. Well, no, you're trying to gain an advantage by doing something that in your heart of hearts is not intended, or probably not intended, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I definitely see where some people are coming from in terms of raw versus rules is intended, because there are times where, and it's a subjective thing. There are times where you look at something, you're like, well, that is the rule as is written, so that's the way it's supposed to be. There's other times where you look at the rule as written and that's not necessarily what's intended. So I understand people are like, you have to play raw, you have to play raw. And there are times as a judge where I'm like, well, we go with what it says. But that's because it makes common sense for it to be played the way it's stated. There are times where you read something in an interaction, or somebody has, 8 different FAQs open because they're trying to weave their thread of this is legal because of all these things. And you're looking at it and you're going, I understand the writing, but it feels like it's incorrect based on the other rules and the way they work. The intention is clearly not for you to be able to do this weird interaction. And the fact that you have to pull out 8 different FAQs to prove your point, just the idea that we're talking about proving point, means that there's something inherently against the spirit of the game that you're trying to pull. And the spirit of the game should be what drives players in general. And like you're saying, we're talking about a game. And you're supposed to be for fun. It's supposed to be an interaction. It's something I do with my buddies. And even if you're playing it competitively, you shouldn't be going against the spirit of the game just to try to win the game. Yes, the game is about winning, but winning at all costs, in terms of win at all costs, in terms of cheating, or in terms of even bending the rules to your favor, it's just not where we should be at as a community.
I agree 100%. Thank you so much for writing the article. Sorry if I got a little salty, but it's one of my hot button issues. The thing is, for me, and this is just one man's opinion, but there is a social contract when you're playing a miniatures game, because to keep the game state clean, it requires both players, and you got to help each other out to make the game a good game. And if one person isn't a good actor in that, it becomes a crap show in a hurry. So, which is why, by and large, 99% of the people you play will be a good guy and make the game a good game, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. I agree that the vast majority of people aren't bad actors in this. They're somebody who legitimately just wants to play a good game with you. And I think that there's a very vocal minority of people who want to be allowed to pick apart these things and live in this gray area. And there's an even smaller group of people who then actively go out and try to use these things and cause a bad time for people. And it's just not okay to be that kind of a person who's going to cause bad games for people just because you are so insistent on winning that you're going to ruin everybody's good time with your weird rules interaction.
All right, John, I think that's well said. Thanks for your time.
You're welcome.
And there you have it. If you could indulge me for just one moment and let me share a Canadian proverb with you, it is be nice and roll dice. Do.
It's the model of the day, the model of the day, the model of the day.
Our model of the day comes to us from Ben Stuff on Instagram, BENS.stuff. I had to do a double take with this one. This is a superbly executed kit bash for what looks to be Titanicus. It's a Necron Knight. Yep, you heard me. This bad boy is radiating with cosmic power, no doubt siphoned from the carcasses of the old ones. This model looks bathed in light emanating from its rich greens that make up its base color. I can't begin to identify the reclaimed bits on this thing, which is a mark of an amazing kit bash. Thanks a lot for sharing it with us. If you would like your models featured in this segment, don't forget to share them with us using hashtag 40K today. Thank you for rounding out your week with us. Do not forget to check out the best of episode coming out tomorrow. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and leave some comments. We've really got some great dialogue happening on our Facebook page, on the polls, wherever you see this show. A huge thanks to our content producer, Alex Bainter, our social media whiz, Tanya Gates, and our technical producer, Seamus Ronan. Without them, this would not be possible. For Steve, John, and myself, Paul Murphy, that's what's happening in 40K today.